Welcome to another edition of Nathan and Adam Talk. I'm Nathan.
I am Adam.
We are Nathan and Adam Talk. Just a podcast every week where we go through a passage together looking at some complex issues. We then look at a little bit about mental health, and a new feature this week is that we are starting to have guests. So Adam, you want to tell us about our guest speaker today?
Yeah, so this week we thought we had towed the line on from what we did last week, talk about men's mental health, and we invited onto the show Robert Devenney. Robert is a member of our congregation. He is also a key worker, working as a HGV driver for Henderson Group, and therefore is on the front line in a bit of a different way every day. So we thought it'd be a good opportunity to chat to him about what he's doing right now to keep his spiritual and mental health well through this period. He's also a father and a husband, and it was just a great opportunity to talk to him and get his input in this into the current situation we're in, and his perspective and what he's going through right now.
Yeah. So keep tuned for that. That's going to be kind of halfway through the show. But now we're going to be going, and our passage this week is going to be a chapter in the Old Testament in 1 Kings chapter 19, and we're going to take the first 18 verses. And this is a particular time in the life of a man called Elijah. Elijah is a prophet. And just a little bit of background about Israel and Judah at this time is that really they are, especially in Israel. Wait, is it Israel or Judah that Elijah's in? It's Judah. Yeah. So we've got a king Ahab at the time, and Ahab is kind of, for me, he's probably one of the most fascinating kings in that he kind of flip-flops between being overtly kind of worshipful and then just being absolutely terrible. And he's so impressionable, and especially he's most impressionable with regards to his wife Jezebel. And you've probably heard of Jezebel. And Ahab and Elijah have this really fascinating relationship in that they kind of go back and forth. And Ahab kind of wants to do the right thing, but very often he's cowed by Jezebel and by false prophets. At this time, Judah is so corrupted by Baal worship. Baal is the god of thunder and rain, and Elijah starts his ministry in a time of drought. So ironically, there's a bit of irony there. But Baal worship has become so normal now. And the passage before that, do you want to kind of give background on that, Adam?
Yeah, I guess the passage before coming into where we're going to talk about it is where Elijah is in the is in hiding in the desert. He is hiding away from the drought. He's waiting for the drought to end, and therefore follow the call of God to go back to Ahab and confront him. I think is the context, if I'm not wrong.
And I'm thinking even before that, that chapter 18 is that famous passage where Elijah faces off against the prophets of Baal, and this is this is like a tipping point, because the end result of that is that Elijah and the people slaughter lots of prophets of Baal, and this is a tipping point because up to now Elijah's kind of been he's like a nuisance, but kind of like something you tolerate. But if you read through 19, we're not gonna do that. But I mean, verse 2, Jezebel says, "Okay, because he's done this, I'm gonna kill him. This is it. Straw broke camel's back, all that jazz."
Yeah, so I think one of the best things before this, to set the context of Elijah. One of the things I love about him is how relatable he is. Yeah. He's got a real, just to set the context, moving into what we're about to talk about, he's got a real defeatist attitude. He so often wants to give up and have an easy life, and God keeps calling him into these situations and putting him in these places of I guess of not test, but of, I guess, strife, and God keeps calling him out into more. And I think one of the beautiful things about Elijah's life that I really relate to is kind of this place that we can all be in sometimes of wanting an easy life, but the recognition as a Christian and a follower of God,
Yeah.
that there's so much more, and sometimes it's those hardships that God wants to mold you in. But we'll get more into that in a bit.
Yeah, and I think just maybe a final thing is that Elijah's life very often has been summed up by isolation.
Yeah.
You know, he's in a really unique place in that even the previous chapter, it's one man versus hundreds of prophets. You know, he very often is living a life of isolation. So it's probably quite appropriate at today's time.
Yeah.
So going through the passage, then we'll just kind of break it down. We have the threat. So, I mean, verse 1, you have typical Ahab. He goes, runs and tells Jezebel everything that Elijah has done. Then Jezebel makes this threat. And so Elijah runs to the desert. And then he comes to a tree. He sits down under it and prays that he might die. Yeah. Now, immediately there's similarities with someone else. You know, so this is there's Jonah right there. It's this idea of, and we know from Jonah, it's a lack of knowledge of God's character that leads into that place, and it seems like it's a similar kind of thing here.
It's this kind of thing that we do in our own lives as well, of seeking creature comforts, isn't it?
Yeah.
Of going back to what we know is safe.
Yeah.
And liking what we know. You know, we all fall into that kind of habit. Much too often.
Yeah. And he says something really interesting. So he says, take my life. And then he says, I am no better than my ancestors.
Yeah.
What do you think he means by that?
I think the thing he's trying to say is, like, you know, you look back at I guess what he'd be referring to as Abraham and the desert and the wilderness, and, you know, walking around in circles for many, many years and being cut off from the rest of humanity. I think one of his fears that he lives out probably on a daily basis as a result of his isolation and this constant call and demand on his life from God is that he's just trying to make a statement to say to God, like, why are you using me? Like, I'm just the same as the rest of you. I'll get this wrong. You know, I'm not up for this. I'm not capable. You know, leave me alone.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, I'm trying to think. Yeah, he finds himself back in the wilderness, and this wilderness was often a place of test. You know, kind of what you're saying there. And he's realizing, you know what, I'm not any better. You know, I don't deserve this promised land, kind of thing. Yeah. So let's you know, take me. You know, it's done.
It's done. Yeah.
It's over. And I think it's also just this weariness. You know, you really just get this sense of weariness from him, don't you? You know, and if you read, sorry, go on.
He's just kind of, it just feels, it's that feeling of he's at the end of himself. You know, he really, like, literally is at the end of himself with all this. You know, and I think if we go back, like what you said about that isolation, we go back and, you know, he makes that statement to the prophets of Baal. He says, you know, it's just me. There's no one else left. I alone am left, the prophet of the Lord. And I think he's just come through trial after trial, and obviously that previous one at Mount Carmel against the prophets of Baal, where he's just like, I can't keep going. You know, I can't do this any longer.
Yeah. And I think also, like, physically, like, if you read the previous chapter, he's just ran an absolute mile. He actually runs fast in Ahab's chariot. And he's just, he's running for fear of death, you know? Yeah. So he's just knackered as well. So he comes to this place of weariness, and then he just falls asleep, you know? Yeah. And I love this then, you know, an angel comes, touches him and says, just get up and eat. And it's interesting that God doesn't come down and say, right, here's a theological treaty on what's happening, you know. Yeah. It's just like, just get up, just eat, you know, just rest. Yeah. And I think there's a real beauty in that. Like whenever we're knackered, whenever there is that weariness, and I guess some of our listeners might be feeling like that right now, is like, we don't want to be like, right, read your Bible more, like you need to be doing more religious stuff. Like
Back to that formula.
sometimes you just need to be like, just good to yourself and to sleep and to rest and
be
spend
still
time.
and know that He is God.
Yeah, just to be with your family and stuff like that. Interestingly, I got a wee brief read of the Hebrew. The Hebrew word in verse 2 for messenger is the same word for the word angel here. It's malach, messenger. Okay. So I think that's really interesting. Is that so Jezebel sends a message of death to Elijah, but God sends a message of life. Isn't that lovely?
That's such a counterbalance, isn't it?
And I think that's very, the world very often will send you messages of toil and tiredness and weariness. But
and
God
right now, fear, so applicable right now, messages of fear and exactly what you were talking about on Sunday was, that fear of the world. And, that is it's such a beautiful pattern to see that when the world comes at you with those messages of fear and misery, that God's come to tend to you and just say it's okay, eat, rest, go back to sleep. It's beautiful, isn't it? That's amazing. I never knew that.
And it's kind of cool because then he looks around, verse 6. And it's like there's detail. Like, I mean, the Bible sometimes, is very black and white about detail. Yeah. But I love that there's detail about even how it's not just he got bread and water. It was bread baked over hot coals. Like that even sounds good now,
But even better than that, it actually says, and he looked and behold, there was at his head. So it wasn't like he put it a meter away. He literally put it by his head. Like even including that detail is so important because it's like he made this as easy for Elijah as possible.
Yeah, I'm trying to get Ash just to put the food at the plate at my mouth so that I don't have to do any movement about that. Yeah, so that's a lovely detail. And then so what does he do? He eats and he drinks and then he goes back to sleep. I love that. And he must feel a little bit heartened.
Yeah.
Verse 7, again, we have another message, but this isn't going to be a message of death or fear. It's going to be another one. It's going to be get up and eat, for the journey is too much for you.
Oh, I love this. Yeah, I love that part.
And that's something really as well, is that each of us are on these journeys that the Lord has put us on, and yet if we don't sustain ourselves by what the Lord gives, we're not going to be able to make it.
Yeah.
And I guess now, we're going to actually find out how we kind of can do that, how we can rest in the presence from the rest of the passage. But I love that. It's like get up and eat because the journey is hard and God knows that. I don't know, it feels even like reassuring that God knows that the journey's hard.
Exactly, yeah. And what's even better about that is that actually I'm reading from the ESV here, and what it says is, arise and eat, for the journey is too great for you.
Yeah.
God's actually saying you can't do this yourself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like God's actually coming to him and saying, the journey, this journey is too great for you. And he's not saying that you can't do it. He's saying, if you do this in your own strength, Elijah, you're not going to make it.
Yeah.
You're right. You are done. You are at the end of yourself. Now let me look after you. You can't do this alone. Stop working on your own strength and look to me.
Yeah. So I love that. So then strengthened by the food. So he's got this strength back. He travels for 40 days and 40 nights. That's some hiking, until he reaches Horeb. And Horeb is obviously this very, very important, almost center of God's glory, it seems, Yeah. Then he went into a cave and he spent the night. And then we keep going, and the word of the Lord came to him. What are you doing here, Elijah? And I was thinking about this. It's like, why is God asking questions like he already knows?
Yeah.
And I started to realize that actually he's not asking because he doesn't know. He wants to check that Elijah knows.
Yeah.
He needs Elijah to almost verbalize what's going on in his life. What is this journey that he's meant to be on? And so
Yeah.
how does, what does Elijah say? He says, I've been passionate for the Lord God Almighty. The Israelites have rejected your covenant, broken down your altars, your prophets put to death. I am the only one left, and now they're trying to kill me too. Just he knows what he's about, but he's also, I guess, this thing, Psalm 73 as well is like, why are bad things happening to me and I've been good?
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
Why is that happening? I've been passionate for you and I'm stuck in a cave.
Yep.
Or I'm passionate for you and I'm stuck in isolation, or my like things aren't going my way, or stuff like this. I thought that it was all meant to be plain sailing.
Yeah. And that's often the I guess the false security we get into as Christians, and it's where your relationship with God can often, I've been through this. I went through a time where, because God was in my mind and in my theology, going back 5-6 years ago, it was a point of, God can heal, so he will heal. God can look after me, so he will look after me. And it's the difference between understanding, the point that I got to was the difference between understanding a father's heart and a servant's heart. And we have to remember that Jesus was a servant, but God is a father. And the thing here is that, me as a father, I rebuke my children. I let them experience negative consequences of their choices, and it isn't this paradigm of God is good, therefore he will make me better. Well, no, actually, God wants to work in that as well.
Yeah.
And it's getting back to that point of realizing that God's father heart also wants us to learn and grow. He doesn't want us just to have plain sailing, because heck, I know myself, the best lessons I've ever learned have been through hardship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Speaking of that, if I can go back a bit, to verse 6 again, to think about, I forgot about this, to mention this. So interestingly, the word for coals there in Hebrew is resapim, and the only other time that it's used in the Bible, can you guess? Hot coals.
Oh, the reap hot coals upon your enemy's head.
Nope. Isaiah, whenever he is in the dream vision and whenever he can't accept God's commission, the hot coals are put against his lips to purify him.
Yeah.
So it's this idea that Isaiah can't accept that he's been called to something. So the Lord sends coals to his lips to purify him, and we have a kind of a similar idea. Only time this word's used, I think, is fascinating. The other the cool thing is the Hebrew word for sapat, or for jar, is safat, and the only other times it's used is in 1 Samuel 26, but also in 1 Kings 17, where Elijah himself, the story of the widow, the jar of oil that will keep filling up.
Yeah.
So it's the same type of jar that he drinks from. So the Lord's like almost saying, look, we've been here before.
Yeah.
We've done this, just that reminder of the past plenty,
Yeah.
Anyway.
You've seen this work out. That's great.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm a Hebrew nerd, so just that gets me.
I love that.
Anyway, so we're in the cave. And God's now taking center stage. He's speaking. He says in verse 11, "Go out and stand on the mountain in the presence of the Lord, for the Lord is about to pass by." So this is awesome, isn't it? Like, this is like God's going to come.
Yeah.
I love this, and that's, I think, our plea, isn't it? Like, I just want to see God more. I want to have this experience of God. I want more of him, and that's what Elijah's basically like. Look, I can't do this anymore on fumes. I need you. I need to see you. And I guess that's where a lot of us are at. So how does it happen then? Here, do you want to take us through the next bit?
Yeah. I love this part, and just these these three simple kind of statements, and I'm actually going to read through this from verse 11. It says, "And the Lord said, Go out and stand on the mount before the Lord. And behold, the Lord passed by, and a great and strong wind tore the mountains and broke in pieces the rocks before the Lord. But the Lord was not in the wind. And after the wind, an earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake, a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire, the sound of a low whisper. And when Elijah heard it, he wrapped his face in his cloak and went out and stood at the entrance of the cave. And behold, there came a voice to him and said, What are you doing here, Elijah?" And here we go right back to the start again. And I think this is amazing because what's happened is the Lord has originally asked Elijah, what are you doing here? And what Elijah's told him isn't really what he's doing. What Elijah's fed him back, we're skipping back up to verse 10 here. He's outlined, the past failures yet again of his people. He's outlined how he's been so badly treated, how he feels alone. But he hasn't actually told the Lord, like, this is what I am doing. This is where I'm going. This is what's happening. He's talked about the past, and his eyes are completely taken off what the Lord's doing in the future. And I think what's amazing here is, we see this wind, this earthquake, and this fire. And every single one of them, it says the Lord was not in them until the sound of a low whisper. And what I think is so beautiful about that is the fact that, we so often are waiting for God to act in such heavy ways or such high demanding ways. We expect to see God do these great feats. And the reality for Elijah and the magnitude of the situation Elijah was in and the experiences he's had, and where did he find God? He found him in stopping, resting, and listening to that low whisper. God isn't necessarily in these big events. That's not where you need to find him. That's not what we should be expecting. Especially in these times where the world is in such chaos, for want of a better word. God isn't in the big events. God isn't in the sweeping down and annihilating coronavirus. I think that's what we all want. That's what we all kind of would love to see happen. But the reality for God is he's not in those things. Where he is in that low whisper and saying, I've got this and I've got you.
Yeah.
We can go this together. It's okay. I'm here. Now what are you doing? I think what he's trying to do there is, like you just said, is reposition Elijah's focus on where he's going and what he has to do in the strength of God. Going back to that, Elijah, this journey's too great for you. You can't do this alone. And it's that, what are you doing here, Elijah, again? And I think it's funny, Elijah then goes into the same answer again. He falls back into that, I've been very jealous for the Lord, the God of hosts, for the people of Israel forsake. He says the exact same thing again.
Yeah. Although I think something has changed. So verse 13, I think, is significant in that whenever he comes face to face with the Lord, he covers himself. So he needs to hide himself because he's subdued, awestricken. This idea. I need to hide my face because I'm not worthy of this. And yeah, like I've been trying to work out. We kind of wanted some big turnaround, didn't we? We wanted some big. Let's do it now, God.
A big event.
And I think what this shows is that, life isn't like that sometimes. What I want from this is that Elijah completely turns his life around, but Elijah is who he is.
Yeah.
And I think the thing that the Lord just needed to really assure him: one, I'm with you. Okay. Yeah. Two, you need to be humble and subdued before me. But ultimately, whenever he asks him the same thing, I think something has changed because the Lord gives him now the challenge to go.
Yeah.
Sometimes these processes take a long time. They're not just instantaneous.
Well, we have the privilege of hindsight and reading the Bible and thinking these things are, snappy. You know,
Yeah.
it's easy with hindsight to read the Bible and consolidate this into the length of time that it took to happen was the length of time it took us to read it, which just simply isn't true.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. But then the cool thing is how this passage ends. The whole thing that Elijah feels is that he feels alone.
Yeah.
You know, he keeps saying this, I am the only one left,
Yeah.
and everyone's trying to get me. You know, that is his overarching feeling, you know, and he's in love with the Lord. He loves God. He's zealous for God. He's enjoyed God's presence, but he's still alone.
Yeah.
So the next thing is that God's like, okay, you're not alone. First of all, go and appoint Jehu, son of Nimshi king. Then I'm going to give you a disciple, Elisha, who's going to become closer than a friend. Then, as if that isn't, I'm going to keep 7,000 people in Israel, all those who, just like you, have been passionate for my name. You're not by yourself.
Yeah.
And I think this is something important, is that, like, you know, the devil wants us to feel like we're alone.
Always.
You know, that we're isolated, that, you know, that no one cares, no one is with us, you know, no one hears us. Like, you know, it's your own problems, your own sin, your own shame. But yet nothing could be further from the truth, because God says, people, you know, we're meant to be together.
Yeah.
And there are others, you know, and that's why it's so sad, I think, whenever we turn our back on Christians, or, you know, Christians split and stuff like that, you know, is because we're meant to be together, you know, we're meant to be in community.
We're meant to be united through our difference, you know?
Yeah.
Nobody ever told us that we have to all be the same. There's close-handed arguments in Christianity for you know what defines a Christian, but then there's open-handed ones that we can argue about all day long. And you can find a verse to substantiate your claim, I can find one to substantiate mine. But the reality of Christians is that we're meant to be united, but with our difference, and that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Any kind of final thoughts on that, Adam?
Yeah, I think my favorite my favorite thing that this wraps up here is that, you know, just what you just said, and two things actually. What you just said about feeling alone, and the most convincing thing here is that up until this point, reading Elijah's story, is that you believe him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you fully believe, and you're fully bought into the fact that he is alone, that he is isolated, and he's been isolated, yes, you know, physically in so many senses. But I think one of the most amazing things is to realize that, you know, what we see at the end of our nose isn't necessarily the truth. You know, and it's reprogramming. And I think one of the main things I'd love people to take from this passage is reprogramming yourself to look at it differently, and to stop, rest, listen for God's whisper. You know, don't listen for the booming voice. Don't expect this to be a trumpet announcement. That's what goes back to what you said on Sunday, you know, about Jesus entering Jerusalem on the donkey, and how we expect God to behave and act in situations isn't always necessarily the way he does. In fact, it's hardly ever the way he does. You know, our expectations of how God will move are often 9 times out of 10 wrong, because we can't comprehend what he does. And it's the same here. It's that, you know, Elijah's at this place, and God's came alongside him. He's tended to him, he's nourished him, he's fed him, he's led him and guided him and been with him. And it's until he stopped to listen to that quiet voice of God, calm himself down, take his mind off the fear and uncertainty of his time, and let God lead him, that he realizes, I'm not alone. You know, I'm not isolated. I may be by myself physically, but I'm not alone by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah. Yeah. Love that. Well, guys, hopefully that's been a really good sort of diving into 1 Kings 19. Join us next week when we'll have another passage. Again, if there's any passage you'd like us to take, please let us know. So now it's that time of the show where we are so glad to have a special guest with us. We've flown him in. We've spared no expense to get this guy. It's been hard, just getting a time when his calendar suited because he's just such an amazing guy. But we have the illustrious Robert Devenney here. Robert, hello.
Hello, Nathan.
How are you?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Good. I mean, I know that this is obviously a personal highlight for you, getting on the podcast that you followed for so long.
Yeah.
I hear you've listened to every single episode, Robert. Is that true?
I have. Top fan.
So most people will know you. Our true fans will know you, Robert. But you want to give us a little bit of background about you, family, and what you do, how long you've been a Christian, that kind of stuff.
Okay, so my name's Robert Devenney. I'm 42. I'm married to Cheryl. We have 2 girls, aged 12 and 10. Been going to Downshire for probably 6 years. I've been a Christian for 4. I'm a HGV driver for Henderson's, so I'm out delivering to Spars, Vivo. So I'm classed as a key worker, which is sort of when I'm put in the same breath as the nurses and the doctors and the NHS staff, I sort of think to myself, "Whoa, I'm only out driving while those guys are actually on the front line." So yeah, but I am classed as a key worker.
Well, I want to kind of come back to that because I guess, whenever you're like, okay, there's surgeons and then, I'm a lorry driver, but I think we want to sort of deal with that a little bit later. But before we get into that, we have a tradition that we've done, every episode that we're gonna try and make each other laugh with some good old dad jokes. Now, We're all kind of at different stages of fatherhood. So, Robert, you've been a dad for 14 years?
12 years.
Adam, You've been a father for 7?
Yeah.
And I've been a father for -3 months. Okay, so in 3 months I'll be a father. Okay, so I think we all qualify in some way to do dad jokes, and we're going to work out who is the best, who's the champion, and we're going to judge that by who gets the best laugh, reaction, originality. So you're going to get 2 cracks at this. Adam, you're going to go first.
Do you want me to go 2 in a row? Is that how we're doing this?
Yeah, go 2 in a row so we get the flow.
Okay. Prepare yourselves, guys, because this is going to get you hard. I'm confident in my humour. So I was talking to Hannah the other day. She's on my back about asking me to stop singing Wonderwall. So I just turned around and I said maybe. You can't laugh. Come on, that's good. You get it. You have to get it.
There's tumbleweeds blowing.
That joke.
Straight here.
I'm laughing at how awkward that was.
How was that awkward? Is that not what a dad joke's meant to be?
Sorry.
That's what a dad joke is.
Yeah. No. Okay, go again.
Look, three months' time, that one will crack you up, Nathan. So, number 2. Number 2. Why did the man fall down the well? Because he couldn't see that well.
Right. Okay. I think the less said about that, the better, right?
Here's the dad jokes are meant to be awkward, Nathan.
No, but they're also meant to be somewhat comical, especially 2 dads.
Okay. I think Nathan's up next. Put himself on the pedestal.
Okay, right. You ready?
Yep.
Right. Today, my son asked, "Can I have a bookmark?" And I burst into tears. 11 years old, and he still doesn't know my name is Brian. Yes, I hear the splutter. Yes.
Sorry, that was me drinking water.
No, I'll take the splutter. Okay. Right, now here's an even better one, okay? So Ash is really mad at the fact that I have no sense of direction. So I packed up my stuff and write.
Fist palm.
Yes!
I'll give you that one.
That's
That
cracker, isn't it?
I'm out of the competition anyway. Robert, you have to redeem us here because we don't need Nathan winning on the first round of this.
Okay. The Secret Service isn't allowed to yell, "Get down," anymore when the president is about to be attacked. Now they have to yell, "Donald Duck."
I like that one. That's good. That's
Yes.
a good start. That's a good start. Right, next.
You know what makes me throw up? A dartboard on a ceiling. No?
I like the
Have you
first one. I
Yeah,
think we'll give Donald Duck as the winner,
I think I agree with that.
and you win absolutely nothing. So
I think I'll concede my place as last on this.
okay. So enough frivolity. So Robert, you were sharing about Frontline. Obviously, you know, it's a really weird and difficult season at the moment. Most of us are indoors, but you're out every day, and especially back, you know, maybe 3 weeks or 2 weeks even. You know, time seems to pass really slowly. But talk us through what it was like whenever toilet roll was like, you know, a drug or whatever it was, you know, like talk us through. I mean, because obviously that was whenever the most, I assume the most pressure was on you guys. Talk us through what that was like, you know.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to work, and we have like first runs and second runs. So normally you out into your first run, you get back for a second run. Maybe you would have 10 second runs in a day. We were having like 35-second runs. So all the drivers were having to do max out their days, 15-hour days. When you were doing your deliveries, if you had like a cage full of toilet roll, people were flocking, and this is no joke, people were flocking around the back of the lorry. Have you got toilet roll in there? And actually queuing up outside the shop, waiting for you to put it in the shop to get the toilet roll. It was absolute madness, you know, and no need for it. People, and then obviously the shops were saying, if you put that all out in one go, it's gone. And then when the old person comes in, or the person who needs it the most, you can only do one weekly shop, they can't get it. You know, and obviously Henderson's were realising this, and then they were limiting for shops for the order stuff for the toilet roll. But, you know, the pressure was unbelievable at that time. But it actually has calmed down now. I think it's not as bad now as what it was.
Is it back to normal, or is it still?
No.
Is there still pressure on?
Well, there's not so much pressure on because we have an oil company called Henderson's Food Service. They service all the school canteens. They're obviously all their work straight up now because a lot of businesses that they would service and the schools are closed. So they're helping us out now. But all the shops are still saying that they're up at least 80% on what they were doing before. But we can't maintain that because people can't keep on spending that sort of money on the shops. It will have to come to a stop at some point, you know. And there will be a sort of like a lull will happen. But at the minute, it's still very, very busy on work.
Yeah. But, and I think, you mentioned there about sort of being mentioned in the same breath as NHS workers. And I think it's really important, Robert, that actually we do pay tribute to people who, because in a sense, I guess for me, it was never about toilet roll that people were panicking. It's about some sense of control, you know, some sense of like, it's going to be okay because I have toilet roll, you know, like, and that was really what was driving it. Because if people were rationally looking at how much toilet roll to how much they needed, you know, you're not buying toilet roll, you know, you buy other things. So I think it's really important that we recognize the people who are doing those jobs just to ensure normality, and that really, you know, was and is you. So I think it's right that we kind of draw attention to that. Adam, do you have anything just before I go on to the face stuff?
Yeah, I think my question, well, not my question, I guess what I want to say is that on that note is, you know, I think you guys need to realize, and I think I was saying this at our home group the other night that you're on, Robert, and it's like, the world is really boiled down to what necessity is, and coming back to that point of understanding necessity. I think, for you and your co-workers and anybody doing those jobs, and I think actually Nathan had said this to me a couple of weeks ago, that he remembers working in Marks and Spencer's. I was the same a couple of years ago, working in the Spar. And like, if anybody had told us at that point in time that we would have been key workers, you would have laughed. You would have thought like, well, what are you talking about? This is madness. But I think the realization is that you are one of those people that's out and around other people every day. And, as this goes on, it's that recognition that, this is a serious situation, and you guys are putting yourself out there and in front of, something that I have the privilege of working from home every single day. I think you guys need to realize, like, what you're doing out there is just, making sure the world gets by with the necessities that we all need. And kudos to you, because you're putting yourself out there every single day.
And I think, I think there's something in that, because suddenly jobs that maybe were undervalued,
yep,
in the public, like, for instance, bin men, like, stereotypically, it's not a very valued job in our society, is it? And yet, I'm freaking out that my bin men are going to stop getting the bin, And it's the same, with truck drivers. It's the same with like people who are just behind a cash register. Yeah, again, like I worked behind a cash register when I was 17, and I just couldn't wait to get to something that I considered maybe like more valuable or something like that. And actually now these people are the ones that we need to be healthy, the ones that we need to ensure. And I think that it's almost like, I really hope that the Lord's like teaching us that to value, all of these roles, and stuff like that, and to value all that society contributes. I think that's amazing. How, and this is maybe a difficult question, but how has your faith sort of grounded you through this time, or maybe you've struggled or journeyed with that? Can you talk us through that a bit, Robert?
Well, during this time, I think what I found that's helped me the most is praying, more praying than I've ever done, really, because I know it's not so much praying for my situation, or it's hearing stories. There was an old man on the radio whose wife had died, and he had basically said, and I didn't realize this, his wife died on her own. Nobody could get in to see her, and she died. He couldn't even hold her hand or say goodbye to her, and he couldn't even go to the funeral because he was in a vulnerable situation. And I just think to myself, I didn't realize that when you have coronavirus, people can't get in to see you. You're dying alone, which is it's so incredibly cruel. It's so bad. But that's that sort of thing there. It's me personally. I don't feel that, although I'm going out there and working, I'm not at risk, because I'm not really coming face to face with a lot of people. Only the people in the shop. And then I would open the back door, I'd push the cages in. I'm in the lorry by myself most of the day anyway, so I'm taking precautions when I can, as much as I can. But yeah, prayer is such a big thing for me at the minute. In our home group, we have NHS workers, and we've seen the effect that they've had on them. And the bravery of those nurses and doctors right on the front line, and I'm praying for them every day. It's such what they're doing for the community and for us. You can't even put it into words, really.
Robert, do you think there's been an impact on your faith, other than how you're reacting to this, but in terms of where you're at and where your journey's been? Would you say that there's been any impact or I guess pickup in your faith in terms of where this is going?
I wouldn't say it's had a negative impact, but I think sometimes you question, where is this going, Lord? What is the reason for this? We don't actually know. Obviously, we pray and we trust that the Lord's in control, but it's just sort of sometimes when you hear about people dying alone and stuff like that, it's really you don't you sort of are questioning God, but all you can do is pray about it, put your faith in God and trust in God that He is in control. and that's all we can really do.
Yeah. Yeah. So obviously, Robert, apart from being, in the supply chain, you're also a dad, you're a husband, you've got a family to look after. And one of the things that I'm really feeling, I've got a child on the way, and it's, there is this anxiety that I feel creeping because you just can't control this. It's not like an intruder you can keep out of your home. It's really, when anti-bac is your best defense, you're in trouble. So I think that we really want to encourage a time, where we, as men, we're getting to share that. But how has that been striking you, and what are your kind of everyday kind of coping mechanisms for just that anxiety that could really just wreck you, but you have to kind of keep in check? How do you process all that?
Yeah, well, I mean, with my children, I don't want them to worry too much about it, because they do watch the news with me at times. And Emily said, my youngest daughter, she stood at the living room door and she just turned around and said to me, "Coronavirus is scary, Daddy, isn't it?" And they just turned on the heel and walked out. But I don't want them to get too worried about that, because they're at home. They're safe here with Cheryl. Whenever I come in from work, to get changed, get my clothes off, get a shower, get cleaned up, try and not bring anything into the house. And really, I just want to try and shield them from that worry, because there's enough things to worry about without them having to really freak out about this.
How do you then do you shield yourself in your mind?
Yes and no, because personally I feel, because I'm in good health, if I did get contracted, well, I think I should be okay. But you just never know. It's just that worry that you could be you could be that person that maybe it really attacks and really does affect. And when you've got a young family and a mortgage and bills and your wife, and you don't want anything to happen. It is such a worrying time. But I do try and, like I say, all I can do is pray and put my faith in the Lord.
Yeah.
And I have been praying. I have a thought, if I'm on a long journey in the lorry, I'll sit and talk to God, and just talk to Him like a normal conversation about my worries and about what's going to happen, Lord, and and I find that really helps me.
One of the points you said there, Robert, I find that interesting, because one of the things that we've been challenged with recently, and obviously, Ari and Elijah, my two, are 7 and 5, and they're a lot younger, and we've for a long time, shielded them from the news and shielded them from negativity as much as possible. I think what's really interesting you said there is, even at 12, that battle still goes on, to try and protect the kids from. And at this time, it's difficult, because on one side, their life has been turned upside down. There's a certain amount of information they need, but it's obviously striking that balance, isn't it, between making sure they're informed, aware, and understand why the situation is the way it is, but at the same time, shielding them and protecting them from that anxiety as well that could so easily creep in. And at that age, it's just something you don't want to be anywhere near them, having to encounter any type of anxiety or fear.
Yeah, no, absolutely, I agree, because, I mean, being a child, you have loads of worries anyway. Do my friends like me? Why is this happening? What's happening now? Why is Mummy and Daddy arguing? Is that because of me? All these are worries to have anyway. You don't need to bombard them with anything more. And I try and play it down to my girls as much as I can, Obviously, maintaining that they understand there is danger. You have to wash your hands and, but make sure it's downplayed a wee bit,
Yeah, we're on that exact same journey.
But I think that's what you need your dad for, isn't it? You think whenever the ship's sinking, if you look at your dad and he's not panicking, it's okay.
Yeah.
If you see your dad panicking, that's when you start to freak.
Yeah.
And I really then think, and I'm kind of going to be talking, I don't want to ruin my sermon, although this will be released after my sermon, so this is fine. It's like I'm preaching on the storm. Well, I will have preached on the calming of the storm, and it's like the place is going mental. Like nature is having its say. And what is Jesus doing? He's fast asleep. Not a care in the world. And so it's this kind of thing that if, just like looking at my dad, the father's not surprised. The father's not panicking. God's not freaking out because of coronavirus. He's not checking the news on his phone when he gets up every morning, being like, "What's happening?" The Lord's got it, and I think that's where I need to be looking all the time. I just need to be looking at God and saying, "Right, He's not freaking, so therefore there's some plan here. There's some hope here. And it's going to be okay." And that's really the hope of a Christian. And
Exactly.
I really think that my real prayer is that people have so many ways of coping with this. They're turning to everything from self-help. BBC are releasing ways of keeping your mental health good whenever you're self-isolating. The reality is that if you don't have God, that it's all fleeting. You've turned to worship, Robert. You've turned to this intimacy with God. You've turned to just keep, like, every time something happens, just look at the Father, just look at God, and I think that's really a wonderful testament, and that's really what I hope our society starts to get in its head. Final comments, Robert, anything you'd like just to say as we kind of close? Thank you for coming on our show.
It's my pleasure. Number one fan. No, everyone just to pray for people who, especially, I even put this on our prayer group, for the home group, Adam, about people who are having to isolate and they live on their own and they've no family. It must be so scary just to be there on your own and, stuck in the house. That would be a real toll on your mental health. And I've been praying a lot for people like that,
Yeah.
And we'll just encourage people to pray for the NHS staff, the frontline workers, and people who are living alone. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Robert, thanks so much for coming on the show. We'll definitely have you back if you're lucky. And congratulations on winning.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Cheers, Robert. Thanks a lot.
Awesome. So, guys, thank you for joining us this week. We really pray that Easter week is a powerful one for you, that even in the midst of isolation, just like Elijah, that you really have an encounter with God's presence, whether it be in loud ways, but also the gentle whispers that God offers. Any parting words, Adam?
No, I just thank you guys for tuning in. I hope that was beneficial to you this week, and just yet again that repeating word of you're not alone. There's support here for you. There's people who are experiencing similar things, and never feel isolated. In this time of social distancing and isolation, you're never alone.
Awesome, brilliant. Thanks for listening, guys. Cheers.
Thanks, guys.